So which door did you walk through this week? Which door did you walk through this week? We have been talking about God presenting open doors to us. We've been talking about God's open doors being these divine opportunities, those moments in which God opens up this place for us that we might be able to do this thing that we could do something for and with God that would further the work of God in the world, and that it takes something from us, and that is for us to choose to walk through that door. So which door did you walk through this week? First week, I asked you to be thinking about a door and to make a choice from all the doors that you are presented. And then I didn't press you on that, but then I invited you the next week to be aware of which doors that you're unaware of. But now I'm going to ask you to turn to someone. And you might not be sitting next to someone, so this might take a little extra effort. I might invite you next week just to get you sitting next to someone to start off that way. But find someone to just say a word to about which door you walked through this week that enabled you to answer or to fulfill that little tug that God was putting on you to do something for God. You have a minute. Go forth. Share which door you walked through this week. I know it's hard to cut conversations short, and I hope if they are not complete that you will take the opportunity to catch up with the person to finish that conversation. But I'm going to have you think about for a moment, in those moments before walking through that door, making that choice in which you were recognizing that God had been working on you, and there were some open doors, some opportunities to do this thing that was probably outside of your comfort zone, but that was going to help you participate in what God's doing in the world. That there was that kind of portal, that doorway. And when you look at a doorway, and I don't know how much attention you pay, because I'm going to tell you, until this week in which I got to think about that title, Crossing a Threshold, each and every day, I don't think a whole lot about the threshold of my doorways. And we don't pay a whole lot of attention to thresholds, because most of the doorways in our homes, it's just pretty much you go from one room to another, and a lot of times the surfaces in your home don't even change. We have carpeting throughout much of our upstairs, and so the surface doesn't change and the threshold doesn't look any different. But when you go from the outside to the inside of your house, if you pay attention, the threshold sometimes is a little elevated in your doorway, and that's to catch the breeze from going through and maybe some dust from entering the house. And the way you cross over that threshold makes a difference. Some of us do it with some care and attention. Some of us go through a little clumsily. One of my not necessarily favorite ways, but I seem to bounce into doorways, so I trip over thresholds. The way we go through, the attitude with which we go through that transition time, that threshold, makes a difference. This whole conversation about the open doors that God presents to us, these divine invitations to enter into the work that God is doing, to participate in the work that God is doing in the world, is an invitation to be in further relationship with God. And we know that the first thing we have to do when we're deepening our relationship with God is to recognize who this being is. And so the very, very first choice we make is to recognize God and to say, God, I recognize I'm not all that, and I'm sorry for all those things that I have done, and I choose you. and I make you a priority in my life. And I am so grateful that you have chosen me. And then when we do that, when we recognize God's presence and we claim God's presence and we recognize that God has claimed us, then as I said last week or the week before, then we're part of God's team. And, what a cool thing. And we have these thoughts we're not worthy, and how could we possibly be capable of doing that? And how could we be people who are able to invite other people to join God's team, to be part of what God's doing in the world? I could barely get up and do what I'm supposed to do, and I'm supposed to be inviting others. And it's all about that invitation. And so I want you to think for a moment about the last time you got a really great invitation. And, sometimes they come in written form, sometimes they come via email, sometimes they come over the phone. But the last time you received a really great invitation, what made it great? What made you want to respond in a positive way? What was it that made you think, yeah, I really want to go and do that. I want to go to that party. I want to go to that event. I want to go see those people. Any ideas? You want to throw some out? What made you want to say yes?
Daryl and Marianne's 50th.
Did you hear that, Daryl? And we figure if you could survive 50 years together. No. The excitement for me, we were on vacation, but the excitement that I experienced from them for the 3 months before their 50th anniversary made us excited, the rest of us excited, yes. Your enthusiasm. Anything else? Stephen, you were saying something.
Just inclusion.
Inclusion, recognizing that other people might be there, that there was and you were being invited. What else? What about the person who was doing the inviting? What about, I mentioned the word enthusiasm. What else about the person that might have been doing the inviting? If someone is doing it out of obligation, does that seem to encourage you? No. If someone seems slightly annoyed that they're having to make that one more phone call, there's something about receiving an invitation from a person who genuinely wants you to come. You feel it. You know that they are seeking your presence, they're seeking your being with them, and you feel good, not only about going, but you feel good about them, and you want to be part of what they're part of. And so when I talk about us being part of God's team, and as part of God's team, we're part of what God is doing, and God's mission is to bring people into relationship with God. And so if we're part of this team that's bringing people into relationship with God, and so our part is to invite people to get to know God, then we need to be as excited and as enthusiastic and as joyful about inviting people to come to know God as God is about inviting us. There's something that tugs on our hearts each and every Sunday and each and every event that happens here at church that makes us come. We feel invited, we feel welcomed, we feel like it's our place, we feel like that's something that's tugging on our spirits, and we need to be sharing that so that others might come to know that same relationship with the Lord. And it's a lot about attitude. And in this, for those who are actually doing the study in the small groups, the video that you'll be seeing, and the 9 o'clock group is seeing right now, there's this woman named Linda, and she's a bus operator. And I have watched the video numerous times actually at this point, and Linda exudes enthusiasm. She gets up about 3 o'clock in the morning to get ready to go to her bus route because she drives the bus in the early morning. And before she gets going, what she does is pray that she will have a good attitude. When was the last time that at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, you were praying that you would have a good attitude about your day? And she's praying that for all the people that she would encounter, that she would have a good attitude, because she knows. When you're the early morning bus driver, you know that not everybody's going to be cheerful. You know that not everybody's happy to be up and communing at that hour of the morning. She's not worried about their attitude. She's worried about the attitude she will present to them, and how she will greet them, and how she will make them feel welcomed, and how she will make them feel comfortable for the rest of their day. And she's concerned about their well-being and how she will help their day get started. And, there's something, when you walk anywhere, for me, it seems to happen more at the grocery store at 4:30, 5 o'clock, 5:30 in the afternoon. You're going through that place and you see these unhappy faces. It is hard to drum up that smile when you're faced with all those unhappy faces. And so what if we're the happy face? What if we're the ones that bring the smile into Dillon's or Hy-Vee or Aldi's at that part of the afternoon? People need to know it's okay. It's the end of the day. You can make it. But she's doing that at first thing in the morning, and she's doing it because she sees this as her ministry. She recognizes that God is using her in this place at this time in her life to do this work amongst this group of people because she's the one. This is her open door. She's the one that gets to, that threshold of the door of her bus opens and those people come into her place, and she welcomes them with great hospitality and sends them on their way into the rest of their day, knowing that they have been treated with the love of Christ. And she knows that they have gone off with a better spirit, many of them with a better spirit than the spirit that came in. And what her desire is that one day God will say, "Welcome, good and faithful servant." Each one of us has the opportunity to use the gifts and the talents that God has given us to walk through the open doors that God has presented to us in our lives. It's not about what someone else has been gifted to do. It's not about the open doors that someone else has been given to walk through. It's about our open doors. And it's not even always about us making the perfectly right choice. We could make the right choice of the opportunity to go through, but if we go through it with a grumpy attitude or a fussy attitude or just plain disinterested, it's not going to have the impact that we could have if we enthusiastically embrace the work that God has laid before us to do in the way that God has presented for us to do it. All we have to do is be the person God has formed us to be loving and caring and helpful, to live our lives in a way that we have been gifted to live them as followers of Jesus Christ, who walked upon this earth loving and tending to the needs of the people that he encountered each and every day. Jesus didn't say when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane, this is really what I want to do tomorrow. But he took on the cross because he loved us so much that he knew that's what it would take. Sometimes the road that looks before us doesn't look that wonderful, but it's the road that's before us. So sometimes the doors might not look that appealing, but we'll never walk through a door that God won't guide us through. And when we are walking across that threshold, we'll never be crossing that threshold alone. And when we're on the other side, as long as we are walking through it, we can be assured that God is walking with us and will be guiding us and helping us to see the light that is before us. May we be a people who walk through the doors that God is opening for us with cheerful, loving hearts, enthusiastic that we are part of God's team, sending the love of Christ in all the places we go. Amen.